I had a W-2 job. I was horrible at real estate, but I'd go into a bank and say, hey, here's my W-2. Can I have some money? And they'd be like, sure, here's a ton of money. Then I got up to 80 rentals. And as soon as I was a business owner, no banker would speak to me.
Welcome to the Real Estate Investing School podcast. I'm your host, Joe Jensen. Our guest today is James Vreeland. Now, James is the co-founder of Cashflow Tactics, which is an education company that shows people how to invest in turnkey real estate assets. He's also the founder of Vreeland Capital, which is a one-stop shop for real estate investors. In the St. Louis market, he can find, fix, place a tenant, and manage long-term any investment property. He's turnkeyed over 700 houses in just the past 5 years, which that's a ton of volume. I'm very interested to hear a lot about what you've been doing, but welcome to the show, James.
Hey, Joe. Call me Jimmy.
Jimmy Vreeland. I like it. Well, sweet, Jimmy. So you're out in St. Louis then, is that right?
Cashflow Heaven. Yep.
Cashflow Heaven. I love it. I've spent some time out there back before my real estate days, but a little familiar with St. Louis. That's great, man. So how long have you lived out there?
I was born and raised here. I left for 10 years for the Army. And then like the day I left, I knew I'd come back. And so got discharged from the Army, came right back home.
There you go. You love it, man.
Yep.
Well, that's great. Well, so you're doing some really cool stuff in real estate. Obviously, you've had a ton of experience. And I mean, with what you're offering with Vreeland Capital, is be able to give guys, hey, here's a turnkey opportunity. That really opens the doors for a lot of people that are interested in investing out of state, or maybe just don't have the time and resources to kind of like do it all themselves. I'm interested in how you got into that, but I mean, let's go back up to day one though. Where did real estate as an investment come across your plate?
It was 2006. I was in Iraq, and my mom, she would send me like care packages and books. And she sent me this little purple book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And she's like, you need to read this.
Dude, I love it. That book. What is it? It's like there's something in those pages that just like set a fire to people's minds of what the heart and soul of all this is about. It's amazing that how often that is the first, impetus to all of this for people.
Yeah, it's a complete paradigm shifter, that book.
Mm-hmm. So you were actually overseas serving in the military, and that's where you first realized, like, dude, I need to get into real estate.
Yeah, like nobody, you would think, if you watch a war movie, you think combat's like 24/7, crazy, right?
Right.
The best I've heard it described is that if a deployment is like a 24 hours, like take a year deployment and say, oh, it's a 24-hour period, like 23 hours, 50 minutes is complete boredom, but that last 10 minutes is complete chaos. And so on these deployments, I would just rip through books.
A lot of downtime. Okay.
Yeah.
And you studied, that's cool that you used that time to actually learn how to, leverage yourself. So when you were done with it, are you still in the military? Are you completely retired?
Yeah, I got out in 08. So I've been out for 15 years.
Okay, cool. So when did you buy? So, you read this book, you get turned on to it, you're like, man, this is cool. What happened to actually lead up to like the first action where you actually bought your first property?
So I still remember this so distinctly. It's 2008, and I'll never forget my mom saying, so my mom and my brother was in medical school in St. Louis at that time. So I'll never forget my mom being like, Jimmy, interest rates are at 6.5%. They'll never be this low again. We got to buy. So I came home from a deployment. I had like 3 months in the States, and then like I had like 3 weeks off at home, and we just spent the whole time looking for real estate, not knowing what we're doing it badly. But the next time the other thing when you're deployed is you're in the desert, you can't spend any money. I wasn't married, and you don't pay taxes. So like I was a 23-year-old guy, pretty liquid. And so I bought my first house during my second deployment. I would just kept sending money back to my mom and brother, and we just kept buying houses.
That's awesome. So your mom and brother actually helping on the ground there in St. Louis while you were overseas.
Yep.
And what was your strategy in buying homes? Were you guys just trying to do like long hold cash flow stuff, or you guys trying to do like
Yeah.
creative flip things? Or what was kind of the focus?
Like I was on Steve Trang's podcast. He's one of my good buddies, but he never
Yeah.
understood why I didn't go straight into wholesaling. And it's because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I
Hmm.
thought I just needed to buy cash flowing assets. So we were buying long term holds. It's kind of like a model that, and then we would have medical students rent out
Hmm.
rooms.
Yeah.
So it was kind of
Okay.
like short term rentals, like the way people are doing now.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole like kind of midterm rental that's getting all popular. Everybody's like, oh, I don't have to like just be vacation spots, but for these traveling nurses and stuff like that. So
Yep.
you were doing it to build your freedom, to build out that cash flow that so when you're done with the military, you wouldn't have to work, it sounds like.
Uh, so that is where I think people take the Kiyosaki message and it goes awry.
Okay.
Like
Expound on that.
when people think they can buy rental properties and stop working, they're setting themselves up for failure.
How so?
It's a rental property. It's going to kick you $200 a month. How are you going to stop working? Like,
Right.
do these build wealth? Are these the greatest wealth producers ever? Do they crush the stock market? Yes. But building wealth and quitting your job are separate issues.
Sure. So that wasn't your focus at the beginning. That you the whole what was kind of the strategy going in?
Well, it was to quit my. So I knew I didn't think I was going to be a career military, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even then, I was like, I'm not going to be able to. I got pretty high ambitions. Like I'm not going to be able to quit my job and have the income I want. But I wanted to be
Right.
wealthy, and I
Mm.
understood almost intuitively that it creates wealth. And there's a difference between active cash and wealth.
Yeah.
And then I think the real estate world gets those really entangled and entrapped and messed up. And I think it hurts newbies.
Yeah. Why don't you actually kind of peel that back on and kind of give us your definition between, active money and wealth, like you're talking about. Let's kind of dive into that and just like pin the difference there.
Yeah. So, like, wealth is the accumulation of assets that you can leverage against or sell over a long period of time. They're basically stores of value, stores of non-cash value.
Mm-hmm.
And then a business or a job is how much cash you're getting every month to, to sustain your current lifestyle right now.
Yeah, that's the active income. That's where like the flipping and the wholesaling and that stuff comes in, where you're actually like
Yeah.
making money, but it's not going to grow wealth because you don't retain the asset.
I had a mentor explain it like this to me. So he was a coach and he was just like, hey, I was like, when should I buy rentals? When should I wholesale? When should I flip? And it's like you
Mm-hmm.
wholesale to create a cash machine, otherwise known as a job, right?
Sure.
And then when you're in a wholesale trying to develop your cash machine, you shouldn't be buying rentals. And I think it's really confusing because everybody's saying they're investing in real estate. But when you're wholesaling, and I wholesale, by the way, I love wholesaling, you're
Yeah.
trading real estate, but it's an active business.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah,
when
that's
I
what I would
buy
say. I look at wholesaling and flipping. I'm like, that's not really investing in real estate. That's using real estate to make money, but you're not really investing in it in the long haul. You're just moving it around.
there's a great book that lays this out for everybody. It's actually a stock market book, but it's called What I Learned Losing $1 Million in the Stock Market. And it clearly
Okay.
defines the definitions of betting, gambling, speculating, trading, and investing.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of, I think it's very important to be precise in your speech. And so there's a lot of
Yeah.
imprecise speech and marketing going on out there. So
Yeah,
like
I think that's true.
trading, you don't want to be long or short on anything. You don't really want to own an asset. That's wholesaling.
Mm-hmm.
Now when I flip a house, I'm speculating. And then when I buy a rental, that's when I'm actually truly investing.
So do you do a combination of all the above, or where do you focus?
All the above.
All the
Like
above.
what is awesome about real estate is you are able to do all the above, but it's an
Mm-hmm.
order of operations question.
And what's the correct order of operations, Jimmy?
Build a according to me and this mentor, you want to get a cash machine. You don't want to start acquiring assets until you have a cash machine.
Okay.
And then once you have a cash machine, you need to turn that cash into long-term assets. And then, yes, like any other retirement plan, I think you'll get there faster investing in real estate. But then, yes, you can stop doing things for active income.
So first build the cash machine. And what do you recommend for that? Wholesaling, flipping? What's the best cash machine in real estate?
Like when I got out of the Army, my first cash machine was a W-2 sales job.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that can put 200 grand or more in your pocket, because starting a business to get it to put 200 grand after tax in your pocket, it's not easy to do.
Right. Yeah, sales is such a good entryway to an active income where you can make good money that you can then go leverage to build a business or start, getting into real estate or whatever. I think that's actually where I got my start, and a lot of our people are in that same boat. Sales is such a good pace for that. What kind of sales did you get into?
Medical sales.
Nice.
So I sold knee and hip replacements. But Kiyosaki didn't go straight into wholesaling. Kiyosaki got a cash machine. He went to work in sales for Xerox. Another great thing about that book, it's work to learn, not work to earn. Like the fact that I can sell and have 8 years of sales experience, that's the most valuable skill set I have.
And then how is that translated over into what you do with real estate?
So what I was doing is I got a corporate job. I weathered the storm and I had rentals. So nothing happened during the crash to me. But, I weathered the crash and then I started buying again like 2011, 12.
Nice.
Because I had that cash machine W-2. So banks were more than happy to lend to me. But then I used my sales skills I figured out how to raise private money. So 2016, being able to speak articulately and sell to bankers and private money lenders, I was able to buy 60 rentals in 2016.
That's awesome. I know you focus a lot on, at least at the beginning, you're like, hey, everybody should just take advantage of like the 10 government-backed 30-year mortgages, right? Like that's like such a no-brainer place to start. But again, you got to have that W-2 job or that cash flow. You got to have that active income to qualify for those. But it's such a great way to start. Is that kind of where you started?
Yeah. So I got out of the Army, went into corporate sales. I was very bankable. Like other people don't understand is like, this is what I never got. I had a W-2 job. I was horrible at real estate, but I'd go into a bank and say, hey, here's my W-2. Can I have some money? And they'd be like, sure, here's a ton of money. Then I got up to 80 rentals and got to the point where I could not quit my job, but laterally transfer into another position, owning my own company. And then as soon as I was a business owner, no banker would speak to me.
Right.
And
so just
nobody
make sure you get those good loans while you can, right?
Yeah. And that's what like I coach people to do is like, you don't give away. And especially after COVID, bro, when no one has to go to work, like if you're a sales guy and you're crushing it, you're like, oh, I don't want a job anymore. I'm like, you got to maximize your bankability before you even consider doing anything with that. And especially like back in my day, you had to go into an office and stuff. But like right now, I have a remote office. Like my team, we're all remote, and so it's just like COVID changed so much for the sales industry. It's like, why would you ever stop that?
So let's if someone came to you and say, hey, give me a game plan. What's a kind of step by step, what should I do to build, wealth and freedom with real estate? Where should I start? And what should I do next? And what should I do next?
Does this person have a cash machine or not have a cash machine?
Let's say they're just starting from scratch. Yeah.
No cash machine?
Nothing. They're just a young kid coming out of college and they're just like, what do I do with my life? Come on, Jimmy. What's the secret sauce?
I'd go get the Deal Machine app and I'd start driving for distressed properties. I'd probably start door knocking.
Okay.
Or I'd go get a sales job for a wholesaler like me and be one of their acquisitions manager.
There you go. So you start there, and then what would be the next step?
I would consistently make over $200,000 for a few years. And then if I'm not making while I'm not making over $200,000, I'm hustling. Like I'm door knocking, I'm driving for dollars. Then maybe I start mailing people, but I'm wholesaling until I get to that point.
Perfect. So let's dive into what you do with your turnkey stuff. You said you've done over 700, turnkey properties. Are these through your wholesaling business then? You're helping people get deals through wholesaler. What is that, and how does that work if someone's like, "Hey, I want a turnkey property." Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's a combination of both. Like the people that my team serves are people who already have cash machines who are looking to invest and start building wealth in real estate. Because so let's say you're a sales professional making 250K a year, right? You're
Hmm.
already at the party where you can start acquiring assets. If you're to leave the party to start wholesaling, you're taking a step back.
Right.
And so, let's say you're that person. We bring you into our program. We show you one, a roadmap, a game plan of where real estate can take you. So we like to get people 20 units as fast as possible. And then at that point, if they want to quit their JOB, that's great. But if it's your cash machine, it's feeding everything you're doing, we're like, keep going. But
Yeah.
in the beginning, we give you a game plan. We show you how to start acquiring properties. We start sending deals your way. And then once you've acquired them, we show you how to properly add them to your financial portfolio.
So you say you showed them how. What if someone's like, I want to be hands off. Like I've got my money machine. I'm active in my job. I don't have time to go find a deal, to vet out a deal, to manage a deal, but I have
Yeah.
money. Can you help me, Jimmy?
Yeah. And so your only job is we'll coach you how to build your buying criteria. And then I'll send you deals, but you have to make the decision, yay or nay. Do I want this deal or not?
And then if I say go for it and I provide the capital, then you take care of all the work.
Correct.
That's awesome. And then, so are you wholesaling deals? Where are you making money in this process? So I guess you could probably have a couple places where you're adding enough value.
Yeah. So we wholesale it to my flipping company and take a spread there. Then the flipping company takes a spread for flipping. And then, so there's enough baked in. We get the houses low enough that
Mhm.
everybody wins. The investor gets the property at a price point where it makes a great investment, and then my teams, they get their spreads and make their money.
So you're making a little bit off the wholesale, a little bit off the rehab, and then you sell it to the investor. You make some there, and then
Yep.
you property manage it as well, so you can make some off the property management.
Yeah. And then what we've had an innovative approach to wholesaling directly to passive investors. Um, we do what we call Berkeys. So instead of turnkey, if you get the hard money or private money or your own cash to take a house down cash from us, we'll do the construction, but we'll get you all in the deal at around 80%. So
Mm,
you're extending your capital base by doing the burrs, and you have to put less money down in each deal.
that's awesome. I like that. The Burr key. There we go. That's innovative.
Like
I
the
love that.
burr, you got bigger pockets. Like the whole world's obsessed with a burr, right?
Right.
And like, dude, it's a pain to find your own house and your own burr. And I was like, whatever, dude, we'll just do it for you.
Well, and then to find a team, especially out of state, for the
Yeah.
contractors, that's always the scary part with flips or burrs or any sort of rehab stuff. Is if you have a good contractor that you can trust, that's reliable, that'll show up and is invested, like you're set, right? But
Yeah.
when you don't, it can just be a complete disaster.
Right.
And it sounds like you have all that in house.
Yeah. One stop shop.
That's great. That's great. How did you scale to be doing, hundreds of these every year?
It's so I like businesses that bolt onto each other. And so I got up to 120 poorly managed rentals myself. Um, and then I joined a mastermind called the Collective Genius. And then and Jason Medley, he owns the Collective Genius, and he's like, "What do you do?" I was like, "Oh, I own 120 lease option rentals." And he's like, "No, what do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I own rentals." And he's like, no, what do you do? Like he was trying to pry out of me what I was doing for active income, right? And I was in a very precarious situation. I learned how to raise private money, but my mouth was able to cash checks that my operations couldn't support, right? So he's like,
Right.
bro, you need systems, teams, process. You need to build a business. Like you're not done. You're 37 and you want to be on the beach. That's what I mean by the whole, hey, I can quit my job thing can hurt people. Like if COVID had happened in 2017, I'd be bankrupt. But
Like that.
thanks to great mentors, great coaches, I was able to build businesses with teams, systems, and processes. So at Collective Genius, I saw that people wanted rentals, already tenanted rentals. So I started turnkeying and learning that game. And I already had property management for my own rentals. So we extended property management out to them. Then we saw there was a little bit of learning curve that you needed to understand turnkey. So then we started the education company. And then once the education company, like that's how we started doing volume. And then I used to get all my deals from the MLS and wholesalers, but that all dried up. To support the education demand, I had to start going direct to seller. And that's how we started wholesaling.
Nice. So are you still collecting like personal long hold stuff for yourself and building that portfolio? Or are you just more focused on the wholesaling, or you just kind of do a bit of both?
So like it's Q4, it's November. So my accountant's calling me how many rentals I need to buy in the next 6 weeks.
For tax purposes?
I buy rentals. So we have 80 rentals. I buy houses for tax purposes now.
Nice. And that's what I think is so interesting with real estate. You've got like the different ways you make money with it, from the equity increase to the tax benefits to cash flow. And it's like at different stages in your career, you'll focus more on one versus another. And it's kind of like say that once you get big enough, it's the tax benefits is the biggest one. And when you're starting, you might not even be paying any taxes. That one's like nothing. It makes no difference to you. But as your career and your job and the income and your life pivots, you can kind of pivot where you focus.
Well, and then there's a reason this is the greatest wealth producer in this country's history. It's because you win in 4 ways. So appreciation, cash flow, the ability to use leverage, and then tax advantages. Like real estate is chess. The stock market is checkers. Like you only win one way. The stock either goes up or it doesn't. Like it's boring.
Yeah. So break down to someone if they're like, wait, why would you buy? How are you saving money and with taxes by buying 10 properties or whatever? Like kind of break that down briefly for the listener.
Okay, so there's a thing called depreciation, which in the stock market doesn't even happen. So real estate is this magical asset class so they started the income tax in 1913, right? And the factory owners and farmers with capital equipment, the IRS was saying, you made $1 million this year. And they're like, no, we didn't. All of our equipment depreciated. And so I have to replace all that equipment. And so the IRS was like, oh, yeah, you're right. So you can start calculating depreciation into your tax return. So that makes sense so far, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a factory owner, like your equipment really breaks down and it's genuinely depreciating and the value of your assets going down. Like if you buy a new car, it comes off the lot, it drops in value by 20% day one, right?
Yeah. You got a budget to be able to replace all that stuff every 5 or 10 or 15 years or whatever.
Yeah. So the IRS says, okay, that's a loss that you can take off your income. And there's this magical asset that to the IRS is losing value, but in real life is gaining value. And do you know what that asset class is?
Real estate, baby. Yeah.
So every year in my tax return, I'm like, with my rentals, I'm like, oh, Mr. IRS, like this portfolio is just getting crushed. It's losing value each and every year. So they're like, oh, you're right. So you didn't make as much money as we thought you did. So cash flow from rentals is as close to tax-free income as you're ever going to get.
Yeah, because you can offset the cash flow with the depreciation.
Correct. Now, and then it's a subject of a different podcast, but tax deferred, like most traditional financial plans, Tax deferred is horrible. Like you're allowing the IRS to tax your harvest. You want to let them tax your seed.
Let's dive into that actually. So explain what you mean by the tax defer, because a lot of people like to do a 1031 and then it defers the taxes down the road.
Yeah.
But you're saying tax the harvest or tax the seed, not the harvest, because that's when it's the smallest. So expound upon that.
Well, so most people think they're saving taxes in a 401k when they contribute a certain amount a year and it's tax deferred, right?
Mm-hmm.
So investors, no investor, Warren Buffett, no great investor will take any investment they make and take it from capital gains tax to ordinary income tax. Every great investor just pays their capital gain tax up front. But what you do in a traditional financial plan is you defer your taxes, and instead of paying capital gains, once you withdraw on that account, you pay ordinary income. Like the second I discovered that, I was like, I'm done. No way am I doing 401ks.
So how does that play into real estate?
So with real estate, sure, you're going to buy your down payments. Well, we can get into this too. With real estate, if you're paying capital gains, well, real estate's also an asset where you can never have to pay capital gains if you don't want to, because you can just pass it down to your heirs.
Mm-hmm.
But a 401k where you're like, oh, I'm going to defer my taxes to down the road when I want to liquidate the portfolio, it's a horrible thing. So now the IRS was going to get 35% of your seed, your income this year, right? Now they're going to get 35% of your harvest, which is a much bigger number 30 years from now when you want to retire. Like it's insane.
And you're talking about with stocks and 401ks and those budgets there. And because at some point you have to cash those out to access any of the wealth that you've created there. And then you're going to get bombarded with taxes. But with
your tax liability is so much higher.
Yeah, but with real estate, you can 1031 those again and again and again and again, deferring that inevitably, even passing on to your children. And the cruel part is you can tap into that equity through HELOCs and cash out refinances and such, tax-free along the way, as opposed to after waiting until you're ready to retire.
You know how Kiyosaki was, once your cash flow is equal to your expenses, you're wealthy?
Mm-hmm.
He missed one thing. If you buy 20 single family assets, or if you wait 10 years on any real estate asset and then take lines of credit, you're getting all your cash flow tax free now.
Yeah. Which is awesome.
Like those lines of credit, that's how wealthy people really live. They buy assets and then they pull lines of credit off their assets. And that's their fun money. And they get all that cash tax free.
Yeah. Which is so cool. And then you can maintain whatever lifestyle that you built through that, but you don't have to be paying taxes on it or anything like that.
Right.
That's awesome. So you're making money on the taxes, right? And then you're also making money on the cash flow, obviously.
Yep.
And then obviously appreciation. You're making money off just the value of it going up. Now you've seen that. You've been around long enough to ride some roller coasters with that. You started, in 2005 and you bought in 2008 and whatnot. You've seen some ups and downs, maybe kind of shed a little bit of light on, everybody's talking about appreciation, but you've seen it plummet. But you still stayed afloat, which I want you to pinpoint why that didn't destroy you. Like, well, everybody talks, oh, I got destroyed in 2008. In 2008, everybody went to hell, but you stayed afloat. And why is that?
I mean, I was buying rentals. Who cares? So let's say I bought a house for 200 and because of the crash, it went down to 180. And then the other thing in the Midwest is property values only went down like 10 to 15%. The Midwest net yield doesn't see the violent swings. But like, so I was underwater on a house, but the tenant kept paying the rent. Like, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. That's what's so interesting to me. I have people tell me like, oh yeah, I got destroyed in 2008. And I'm like, oh, what kind of investing were you doing? And if they were doing flipping or development, it's like, yeah, that's when they got left kind of screwed, right?
But back to that
running, go on.
But back to being clear on your speech, when you're flipping, you're speculating. You're not investing.
Yes. I love that. What was that book again? That you said
you have to
how I
this
lost
book
$1 million.
Yeah, this book is so funny. It's how I lost $1 million in the stock market. It is hilarious.
I love that you break it up between like speculation and actual investing, because that's the thing. The real estate investors, the long hold cash flow rental guys, they weren't destroyed in 2008. It doesn't matter if if the world says the property's worth less, if you've got contracts and paying tenants,
And
they're still
you're
going to cover your mortgage that's locked.
Yeah, and you're liquid. So like if you have a couple months where there's no tenant, there's a make ready, and you have the cash to pay for that, like cool, who
Sure.
cares?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why everybody should always have, 3 to 8 months of cash reserves, for all their stuff. So it's like whatever happens, they can kind of bridge the gap of an issue of tenants or this or that or a little hiccup, but it's like, it's not going to put you under.
Yep.
That's so cool. Now you've seen, what was it like though, going through seeing the real estate market go down? You think, oh, I'm making money with appreciation and cash flow and this and that. And then you see it all start getting stripped away, wealth wise, that wealth that we're talking about. You still got your cash flow but the wealth, you think, oh, I've got, $1 million in equity on the books. And then a few years later, you've got like nothing in equity, actually underwater. What's that like, and what was your mindset and strategy to kind of like navigate all that?
Well, I mean, so at that point I was really heavy. So my daughter was born in 2010, then we had a kid in 2012, then we had a kid in 2014, then we had a kid in 2015. So the short answer is I was too busy building a family to care. But I was also
Nice.
too busy working inside my cash machine in corporate sales. So I was just like, this is a blip. Who cares? It'll come back. Like, focus on what I can control, which is the active income I was making back then and figuring out how to raise 4 kids.
Yeah, that'll take up some of your bandwidth, right?
But like your net worth, like it's important, but it's not important. Like it's there and it's not there. You know what I mean? Like if you have your cash machine, you're cool.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I love one thing you mentioned. You're like, I focus on what I could control. And it's really, I mean, I study a lot of stoicism. I don't know if you follow that
I
stuff.
love me some stoics.
Yeah, like that is the core heart of like success in everything, is like, well, focus on what you can control. Because other than that, you're just wasting time, wasting energy, wasting focus, which is your most valuable asset, is your time, your energy, and your focus. Like there's nothing more valuable than that. And if you're focusing on things that are out of your control, it's just the biggest waste. There's the biggest loss you can actually imagine is right there.
Have you read any Ray Dalio?
I love Ray Dalio. He's incredible.
Did you read that second book, like something about the New World Order?
Changing World Order or Principles?
Changing World Order.
Yeah, I've read he's cool how he breaks it down, because he has like these bold parts and like italic parts and the full thing, so you can kind of skim it. But I read like the major parts of it. It's a pretty heavy book, but some of it I dove into, but really, really interesting.
So the main takeaway I took from that book is like, here's the 3 disasters the modern man faces: natural disasters, economic recessions, and shooting wars. Not cold wars, but hot wars, right? And then here's the basic numbers. Like most people don't get shot in hot wars. I know that from personal experience. Most people keep their jobs in recessions, and then most people survive natural disasters. So I think when people are afraid of recessions, afraid of wars, afraid of all this stuff, like, do you want to know what the worst thing about combat was?
What?
Thinking about combat, being anxious about it. Like once you're in it, it's like you're in the zone, but the thinking about it is, and so I kind of bring that attitude to investing. Like I plan for the worst, I hope for the best, but I'm not going to let future, and this took a lot of time to learn and I still fail at it, but like, I'm not going to let future risk mess with my current attention. Like you phrased it really well. Your most valuable asset's your attention.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I've heard the phrase, Grandpa says the dreading is worse than the doing, And if people are sitting here dreading things they have no control over, like say recessions, wars, whatever, it's like, first of all, like I said, chances are it's actually not really going to affect you near as bad as you think. And even if it does, you have no control over that anyway. So just focus on what you control, put your attention where you should. And then when you do go into the moment, you're probably going to actually weather it better if you haven't been sitting there dreading
Well,
the
yeah, if you're
whole
not
time.
emotionally exhausted, when you actually need your emotional energy, that reserve will be there for you.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Um, so how long you served as an Army Ranger, which
Yep.
that's an elite class. Tell us a little bit about what you've learned there and how that's applied in helping you in the rest of your life.
I just learning to perform to a standard and be like the Rangers are completely objective. You perform to standard, you're in. You're not, you're out. Right.
Yeah.
And then I I think it going overseas, going on deployments, going through Ranger school, doing all that hard stuff. I do think it blessed me in that I have an extra gear. Like I can
Mm,
always look back and be like, it's still not as bad as that. I can keep going.
right. And you're like, you have that obstacle immunity. We're like, dude, I've overcome this, this, and this. Like I can overcome anything. Like whatever it is that comes my way, I might not know what's coming, but I
Yeah.
know that I can overcome it.
Yeah. And then the value of playing on an elite team, I got to see how elite teams play. That
Mm.
has been another blessing.
Yeah, I bet you've carried that over into how you run your businesses, huh?
Yeah, we've tried to bring all the good of the military we can, and I got two other Army guys that work with me, but we've tried to bring all the good that we could find in highly coordinated teams and bring that to our business.
I love that. I think that's so cool. Man, there's so much we could jam on, Jimmy. What advice would you kind of give the listeners if someone's like, hey, they're thinking about real estate, maybe they've got a couple properties, and they're trying to build that freedom, but they just feel like they don't really know where to go, especially with the economy right now. What would you say to them?
I'm gonna get philosophical on you. You ready? Because
Let's
so
go.
I've been in this game long enough, and then with my time in the military, like, do you know what I think the most abused English language word is?
What?
Freedom.
Mm.
Like
Expound on that.
freedom means responsibility. But when people talk about financial freedom, they're generally talking about freedom from constraint. Like if you want to be truly free, you have to bear your cross. You have to take up your responsibilities, and you have to when I look at my freedom, I want to be free to pursue excellence. I do
Mm.
not want to be free from constraint.
Yeah, I heard it said once, I think it was Angelou, they said that freedom is not freedom from obligation, but it's freedom to choose your obligations.
Yeah,
And I was
to
like,
be free
oh,
what you ought to do.
yeah,
So
not
like
doing nothing.
when I get on the phone with somebody like, Jimmy, I want to buy rentals from you and so I can quit my job, I just cringe. Because it's like, that's not freedom. Now, if you're like, Jimmy, I want to buy rentals so that I can start building wealth, so that I can, do my best to pursue excellence, like I love working with those people.
But
But
what
I
if
want to
somebody just
pursue it.
wants to be lazy and that's what they want to do with their freedom?
That's not freedom. I would call that being a slave to your appetite.
Ooh,
I told you we'd get philosophical. I
I
told
like
you,
that.
like
I
you read
like
the
that.
Stoics, like
Yeah.
you can easily be a slave to your carnal urges. Like that's so boring.
Yeah. That's money. Well, and there, that's one of the, I mean, that is a carnal appetite is laziness, sitting
Yeah,
and doing nothing.
sloth
Yeah. Well,
is a vice.
that is great. And when you become a slave to that's a wicked ruler because it'll take up all your time and all your resources.
Now, is there a time, like I went through this, there was a time where when I did a lateral shift into becoming a business owner, that I could pursue excellence in a different way than being a corporate employee. And it was
Sure.
time for me. But
Well, there's different realms, right? You can
yeah,
pursue excellence in a job, you can pursue excellence in a family. Like I said, you're growing your family. You can pursue excellence in your fitness and your health. Like there's lots of different paths to pursuing excellence, and different times in life, you'll be able to have more bandwidth to focus on one versus another. But in none of them, like say, is sloth or doing nothing an answer to give you more freedom, because it actually leads to more constraints because you have less opportunities and less ability.
Or accepting mediocrity does not lead to freedom. It leads to slavery.
It really does. I love it, man. That is great. If people want to follow you, Jimmy, if they want to reach out to you, if they do kind of want to like tap into the turnkey stuff that you have, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, go to Vreeland. If you want to see our website, if you want to go old school with a website, go to Vreeland-Capital.com. But where I like communicating with people most is I like doing your guys' millennial games. I like DMs on Instagram. So it's Jimmy Vreeland on Instagram. And that's V as in Victor, Reeland.
There we go. I love it. Yeah, Instagram's a great resource for that. So we're going to dive into our final 4 questions here, and then we'll kind of let you go. But we've got some time to go into these deep if you want. So first question, Jimmy, is what is your dream deal or some deal you would love to tackle someday?
So I get called out about this all the time, but there's a lake in Missouri called Table Rock Lake.
Okay.
And I want some like 5,000 square foot lake house that I get on sub 2.
There you go. There you go. So somebody, if anybody's listening, get Jimmy.
Yeah, and I want
out on Table Rock.
And I want the loan at 3% and have it been created at like in 2020 during COVID.
There you go.
And it's got to have marina access as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to have straight access to the water. What's the point, right?
Yeah.
I love it. That's a good one. I'm guessing you wouldn't flip that one.
No, I don't even know if I'd Airbnb it because that would be like my space.
It's your baby. I love it, my man. All right, question number 2. What is one of the most pivotal books you've ever read? Now, you already gave us Rich Dad, Poor Dad, so we'll take that one off the table.
Chase the Lion by Mark Batterson.
Ooh, Chase the Lion. I'm going to write that one down.
If your dream doesn't scare you, it's too small.
What was the author?
Mark Batterson.
Mark Batterson, Chase the Lion. Okay. And so, I'm walking away thinking, okay, if I haven't read Rich Dad, I need to read that. Chase the Lion, and then also just the last how do I lost $1 million in the real estate or in stock market.
They're all great audiobooks.
I want to check that one out for sure. All right, so next question here. What is one of the most expensive or interesting mistakes that you've made in real estate investing?
So I've gone viral with one video.
Okay.
And I went viral with one video, and it's a video. It was like a 1-minute short I made in front of a house I forgot I owned.
Go into that.
And so the point of the video was like, real estate's like a bad haircut. Like you get a bad haircut, time solves everything. You buy a house in 2007, time solves everything, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, hey, check out this house. I forgot about it. We were moving offices and the tenant signed the lease that day and we forgot to put it into our property management system. And these people didn't pay rent, tore it in half. And it's like 9 months later. And I get a summons from the county saying, hey, you own this house and it's a vagrancy notice, right? And I'm like, I don't own that house. What are you talking about? And then we looked at the county records like, oh no, I own this house. And this tenant lit this house up, right? And we bought it because it was a 3-car garage. They stole all the garage doors.
Oh my gosh. So wait, what is a vagrancy notice?
Like the grass was like 4 feet high.
So they didn't stay living in it for free. They just trashed the place and took off and left it empty?
They trashed it and left.
And you didn't ever go and fix it up and put new tenants in because it was off your books, and you didn't even realize it was there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I make this video, and dude, the hate of that video was amazing. Like, this rich son of a bitch, like, he's so rich he forgot a house. I'm like, no, I'm dumb enough to forget a house. But real estate, time will solve everything in real estate, even as bad a mistake as that.
Well, it's funny because I talk about, difference between real estate and a normal business. Business is competitive. You got to show up. You got to be there every day. You got to, perform. Real estate's funny. It's the only asset that you can just own, forget about. This is the example I always use. Even if you forgot about it for 20 years and you come back to it, it's going to be worth, double what you got it for.
Right.
Literally doing nothing, for 20 years. I've never had anybody have an actual example of forgetting about the house, but I'll give you a similar one. I would used to be really active in sales, and we had a summer season that was like our big heavy season, right? And I had some tenants, and I was so busy with my active income, my job, I wasn't tracking it all properly. And I come back and I'm doing my thing, and I'm like looking over my books, and I reach out to them. They hadn't paid rent in months. And I didn't even know because I was so focused, and I didn't have my systems. Like you said, it's just being dumb, like not being organized. And I'm like reaching out to them, like, can you guys catch up on rent? They're like, oh yeah, sorry. They were just like hoping I wouldn't ever notice. And they got away with a lot more than they should have. So I actually,
and then that's why lesson learned from that is never self-manage.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you have an active income. Like if you've got your money machine, like say when you're out doing that, focus on that, hire out to someone else to take care of this stuff, and it'll pay for itself just from the stupid little mistakes you'll make. Because things will inevitably slip through the cracks if you're spread too thin,
Absolutely.
Or you're just not good at it. Maybe you're just, that's not your strength.
Well, dude, why take on that low-paying part-time job? And I break down the math. Like, you're going to spend, if you're self-managing, you're going to spend at least 3 hours a month on it. And most people who are buying houses make around 150 to 200 bucks an hour. So it's like you just cost yourself 600 bucks where you could pay a property manager 80.
Yeah. Well, and minimum, and then if you have repairs and turns, you're spending a lot more time than that,
Right.
And you're not even doing a good job. That's the thing. You won't even do as good of a job as someone who's got a whole system in place and can do everything for you, because that's what they're professional at,
Yep.
I love it. Okay. Well, last question, then we'll let you go. Jimmy, what's the purpose of life?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a good one. Figured I might as well start finding it out.
To get to heaven.
To get to heaven. There we go. Purpose of
you're
life.
You're put here on earth to love, honor, and serve God and join him in heaven. Like everything else is corollary.
Easy answer. Love it, Jimmy. This has been great. Thanks so much for being on the show. I'm sure we could go for 10 more hours, but we'll let you get back to building your empire and taking over the world. Thanks for your time.
Cool. Thanks, bro.
Awesome. Well, this is Joe Jensen signing off for the Real Estate Investing School podcast, reminding you to build your money machine and go build your life.